an 85% export collapse, a $138 billion drop in foreign treasury holdings, and a consumer boycott that is no longer confined to Canada. What if those aren't separate stories? What if they're early warning signs of a much larger shift affecting trade, manufacturing, investment, and even the future of North America's automotive industry? For decades, businesses relied on stable supply chains, predictable trade relationships, and steady investment flows. But today, those assumptions are being challenged from multiple directions. Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. Today, we're examining how consumer behavior, political tensions, and global capital are colliding in ways that could reshape factories, supply chains, and industrial investment across the continent. Number 5. Consumer Revolt. How an 85% export collapse hit America. One of the most surprising developments is how a consumer boycott evolved into a powerful economic weapon. Instead of governments alone driving the pressure, ordinary consumers became active participants. The clearest example came from Canada, where U.S. spirits exports plunged 85% during the second quarter of 2025, falling below $10 million. Wine, beer, and liquor exports also suffered as provinces removed products from shelves, and consumers chose domestic alternatives. American wineries and bourbon producers felt the impact immediately. Beam Suntory's production pause in Kentucky highlighted the consequences. Much like automotive buyers switching brands, consumers who embrace alternatives often prove difficult to win back. But the damage didn't stop with Canadian consumers. What began as a local boycott soon started crossing oceans, creating new challenges for American brands abroad. Number 4. Boycott goes global. U.S. brands face growing backlash. Anti-American consumer sentiment gradually spread beyond Canada into parts of Europe. Surveys in Germany showed some consumers avoiding American products. Polling in France revealed support for boycotts involving brands such as Tesla, Coca-Cola, and McDonald's. In Denmark, political controversy surrounding Greenland contributed to backlash against certain U.S. goods. While most Europeans continue purchasing American products, the trend highlights growing reputation challenges. Modern boycotts spread rapidly through social media, shopping apps, and retailer promotions. Goldman Sachs estimated widespread foreign boycotts could reduce U.S. GDP by between $28 billion and $83 billion. For automakers, brand trust now matters almost as much as engineering, performance, battery range, and pricing. But consumer backlash is usually a symptom, not the root cause. To understand why these movements gain traction, we need to examine the political tensions that strained one of North America's most important economic partnerships. Number 3. Alliance under pressure, trade tensions reshape North America. For decades, the United States and Canada maintained one of the world's most integrated economic partnerships. Vehicles, energy products, agricultural goods, steel, aluminum, and countless components crossed the border daily. That relationship became strained as tariffs expanded and political rhetoric intensified. Many Canadians viewed tariffs on autos, steel, and aluminum as economic pressure directed at a close ally. The automotive sector illustrates the risks. Modern vehicles rely on cross-border supply chains, with parts often moving between the United States, Canada, and Mexico multiple times before assembly. Uncertainty raises costs and complicates long-term planning for battery plants, engine programs, suppliers, and assembly facilities. Trust, once lost, is difficult to rebuild. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this breakdown, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to Piston Pundit. We cover the stories shaping the future of vehicles, manufacturing, supply chains, and the automotive industry, and your support helps us bring more of these deep dives to fellow enthusiasts. Now, let's shift into a trade dispute that may sound small on the surface, but could carry consequences far beyond the product itself. Because while tariffs on autos and metals grab headlines, another battle is emerging that could create a surprising new precedent for global trade. Number 2. The mushroom dispute. A small tariff with huge risks. Compared with automobiles and steel, energy, or treasury markets, mushrooms may seem insignificant. Yet this dispute could establish an important trade precedent. In May 2026, the U.S. Commerce Department announced preliminary countervailing duties on fresh Canadian mushrooms, with rates ranging from 1.62% to 4.97%. American officials argued that certain Canadian producers benefited from government support considered unfair under trade rules. Canadian producers responded that similar agricultural tax policies exist in the United States. That is where the issue becomes more significant. If agricultural tax treatment is increasingly viewed as a subsidy, other countries could potentially apply similar arguments against American exports, creating broader risks for U.S. agriculture. But while the mushroom dispute focuses on trade rules, the biggest shift may be happening somewhere else entirely, in the global flow of capital. Number 1, capital heads north. Investors see new opportunities. The biggest development may not be happening on farms or store shelves, but in capital markets. Canada has long been viewed as a stable, resource-rich economy, yet often receives less attention than larger investment destinations. That perception may be changing. Foreign direct investment into Canada reached $96.8 billion in 2025, the highest level in 18 years. Investors are increasingly attracted to Canadian energy, infrastructure, critical minerals, LNG projects, manufacturing, and defense industries. Meanwhile, foreign holdings of U.S. Treasuries fell by $138.4 billion in March 2026. However, the broader story is diversification rather than abandonment, as investors continue allocating significant capital into other American assets. And that brings us to the biggest takeaway from this entire story. Verdict: beyond tariffs, the economic shift just beginning. What started as a disagreement over tariffs has evolved into a much larger conversation about consumer influence, economic trust, supply chain resilience, and global investment flows. The United States remains the world's largest economy and continues attracting substantial investment, but several warning signs are becoming harder to ignore. Canadian consumers are changing purchasing habits, boycott sentiment has appeared in parts of Europe, and trade disputes are expanding into new sectors. At the same time, Canada is positioning itself as an increasingly attractive destination for long-term investment. For the automotive industry, where factories, battery plants, mineral projects, and supply chains are built, often depends on where capital flows. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Do you think Canada's boycott efforts will have lasting effects on American industries? Could more global investors continue shifting capital toward Canada in the years ahead? What impact might these developments have on North America's automotive manufacturing sector and future vehicle production? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this analysis, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next vehicle updates, industry developments, and automotive insights here on Piston Pundit. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.